Protests spreading across China, citizens pushing back against the nation's COVID-0 policy, some calling on President Xi Jinping to step down. Goldman expecting the headwinds to continue, writing the following: the central government may soon need to choose between more lockdowns and more COVID outbreaks. The current situation imposes further downside risk to our below consensus Q4 forecast. Our 30% subjective probability of reopening before QT next year includes some chance of a forced and disorderly exit. Joining us now, team coverage here at Bloomberg, Alan Wan in Shanghai and Damien Sessa here in New York. Alan, can we start with you just describing how different the events of the weekend are compared to what we may have seen in previous demonstrations over the last couple of years?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've actually witnessed a few demonstrations in the past, back in 2011 at the Jasmine Revolution. And even last year, I went to Shenzhen to cover the Evergrande protests. But those protests were very targeted, very limited. And the protest over the weekend was huge. We had several thousand people marching on Wulamuchi Road, which is a very fashionable area of the French Concession. Several thousand people, a couple thousand people, young and old. They were calling for everything from the end of COVID-0 to the release of prisoners who had been detained a couple days earlier because after a peaceful vigil, and even calling for political change. And they were they'd be confronted by police. I mean, they were talking about hundreds of police who were busted to confront these protesters. And what I gotta say was really tense and chaotic. Not particularly violent, but there were episodes of violence. Basically, I saw police haul away a couple of protesters. One of my friends is a cameraman for BBC. He was detained, and he was allegedly assaulted as well. So this is definitely not something that I've experienced in my 13 years in Shanghai.
Alan, can you help us also understand the potential for a policy shift off the back of these events over the weekend? It's a big conversation in markets whether we will get that shift away from COVID-0 because of something like this. What's your reading of that situation?
Right. I think there are basically the government has two options, right? First, it could relax. Well, I mean, a lot of people have been expecting. This is the reason why we've had a rally in the markets over the last few weeks. Expectations that we're going to have an early exit from COVID-0, possibly after the National People's Congress in March, and that has fueled a rally. But given the recent upsurge in cases, that's going to make it quite difficult. But given the fact that we've had some, massive protests over the last few days, not only in Shanghai, but in Beijing and Wuhan, I mean, it's spread nationwide. This could put pressure on the government to sort of accelerate, an exit from COVID-0. That said, the government hasn't really said much about it so far. But the Communist newspaper, the People's Daily, said that they're planning to stick to COVID-0. So there's a chance that the government will just double down on COVID-0. Yeah. And that's even more concerning given the fact that earlier this month, the government unveiled these guidelines to loosen the rules. And now there's been sort of a reversion, from all of that. So there are these two options, and we're not quite sure which one is going to win out. So we're just going to have to wait and see.